Good morning. It's September 23rd. This is Long Live Dante Day number 1. We've been celebrating the life of Dante all week, leading up to September 23rd and September 24th, which are Long Live Dante days for the weekend, because this is when everything began to change for my son and the life of his family. On this day, September 23rd of 2016, I remember I was at the gym, and my son and I, we were kind of going back and forth on Facebook, joking around, and I looked at the message, like, oh, he hadn't responded yet, and not realizing, what was going on behind the scenes. So I'm just thinking, oh, it's just the time difference between here and El Paso, Texas, so he'll hit me up later. So I continued my workout, and went home, put on my clothes, was getting dressed to meet some friends for breakfast after the workout at the mall, because that's what you do in Doha, Qatar on the weekends. So we get to the mall, and as I'm in my taxi headed that direction, I get a message. Mom, something happened to Dante. He's been stabbed. Call us back. So I'm looking at the message, and I'm like, who is this? I don't know this number. So I text the message back, and I said, I responded to the message, and I said, who is this? I don't know you. What's going on with my son? No reply. So I said, this is not funny. It's not a joke. Please don't play games about, my child. I don't play about my kids. What's going on? So, no reply. So I wake up my mom, try to wake up my sister, try to wake up my daughter, my brother, my other sisters, 4 of us. No one was answering, because it was like the wee hours of the morning there, so everybody was asleep. So I'm texting, wake up, wake up, wake up, ringing the phone, something's happened to Dante, wake up, everybody wake up. At this point, I'm getting agitated because they're asleep, which they should have been asleep, but my patience is short at this point. So finally, my sister woke up and called me back, what's going on? And I'm telling her, I got a message saying that Dante had been stabbed. I'm trying to call the hospital. They're saying that he's not there, but then somebody else is telling me he is there. Like, his friends are telling me that he's there. So, of course, we tag team. So she gets on the phone. My mom finally calls back. I have my mom on conference call. Finally, I get one of his friends on the phone who can connect me with someone there at the hospital, because initially it was like, he's not here. We don't have anybody registered by the name of Dante Long. So I'm like, okay, well, good. Maybe, it's not as bad as I thought. But then we find out later that no, he is at the hospital. So his friends who were at the hospital, they were trying to convince the medical staff that, hey, this is his mom. She's out of the country. You have to talk to her. She's trying to find out what's going on with her son. Finally, they get a doctor on the phone, and he wants to go through this whole spiel about the procedures that they attempted with Dante. And I didn't want to hear that. So what I told him, or what I asked him, and I said, sir, I understand that you have to go through this protocol, but I just want you to tell me if my son is dead or alive. That's all I want to know right now. I couldn't even listen to anything else he had to say. I just wanted to know, was he dead or alive? So he said, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, he didn't make it. I was standing in the middle of the mall, leaned up against this column, a thick round column that was in the mall, and I remember seeing one of my friends walking towards me because she had just made it to the mall. The other friend was already there, and I'm telling him, come. He's looking at me like, what's wrong? And I'm like, leave out of the cafe and come closer, because I'm trying to find out what's wrong, but something is wrong. And so he finally walks over. He can hear the conversation, but he remains calm. So I get this news that he's no longer alive, and I remember dropping, like falling to the ground. And I remember the friend of mine picking up the phone, letting them know who he was. It must have been nothing but God to have him there, because this is his everyday job. He works for EMS in Doha. That's what he does. So he knew how to respond in emergencies. He could better comprehend what was being said than I could at the time. So he was definitely the perfect person to be there. My sorority sister was also there. It's just like the right people were there because they remained calm. They took control, and that's what they do anyway. Both of them work in the medical industry. So they got me back to my apartment, and I remember just hurting. My heart was broken. It felt like when I heard the doctor say he's no longer alive, I don't know, it felt like if you dropped some heavy glass item and it just shatters. That's how it felt inside of my body, like just a shattering of some sort, a ringing of some sort, like a bunch of broken pieces. And because I'm typically the type of person who likes to kind of manage at least my surroundings or control my surroundings, it immediately felt like everything was out of my control. And I'm not so sure if I was more frustrated about that or just the fact that someone had just told me that I lost my son. So I cried, for a good bit. But then at some point I remember I stopped crying. Even through the tears, I remember trying to pack. I remember people showing up, my team, like my people, like the people who I know care about me, the people, my support system that was in Doha. They showed up, and they were there. And I can't tell you what was going on. Like, they could probably tell you better than I can what I was doing. I just remember I needed to get home, and I needed to get my things packed. And in the back of my mind, I kind of had a feeling that it would be a while before I would be back in Doha, so let me make sure everything else is packed. I never thought that I would be, like, not returning to Doha. I just thought it would probably be, I just had this intuition that it would be a while. Even though I heard the news, even though I heard what the doctor told me, the immediate action is my immediate reaction is the reaction that you generally have when you hear news like that. But I didn't connect to it, I heard it, but I wasn't connecting. I was responding, but I wasn't connecting. So I get on the plane and I began to see people post things on social media on my son's Facebook page because I was looking at it. I heard what happened. I know what the doctor told me. But for whatever reason, it wasn't resonating in me that this really happened. So I go to my son's Facebook page. I actually called his phone. I go to his Facebook page to see if he had posted anything. I go to my page to see if he responded to my post. Even after I heard everything that took place, even after I heard them say he was no longer here, I'm still looking for my son. I didn't want anybody posting anything on my son's social media page or my page about rest in peace, blah, 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 blah. So when I saw it, the first thing I said was, Deja, Tip, Deja's my daughter, Tip is my sister, somebody get control of this page. I don't want anybody posting anything on my son's page. And I was adamant about that. And my family, like, our village is so strong. And they made sure no one was posting any kind of messages. If they did, they would, it was immediately deleted. Finally made it to El Paso, touched ground, and I don't think I cried anymore, like after I initially got the news, because I was thinking in my mind, okay, what needs to be done? Where are his belongings? Organizing things on the ground until I get there, trying to get my mom, my sister, my daughter to El Paso until I got there to figure out what was happening, touch bases with the military because he was in the Army, just trying to figure out what was happening and just, trying to process everything and trying to hold it together because that was a long flight from Doha to Texas. I get there and it's just all about taking care of the business. Where's the car? Is this taken care of? Did you all get the paperwork done with the military? Where's his body? How do we pay for the services? Just strictly taking care of the business. I'm doing all of these things. I'm not shedding tears. I'm not freaking out. I'm not falling out. I'm just trying to make sure everything is together. So we go back to the crime scene. And I'm saying, walk me through. I want to know what happened. Walk me through what happened. So they walked me through it. I traced every single step, trying to figure out, okay, this happened. I'm a logical person, so I'm going to ask questions, and most times that kind of intimidates people. But I ask questions not to intimidate, but to connect the dots. That's just my personality. I'm going to ask until it makes sense to me. And if I walk away and it doesn't make sense, I may sleep on it and it'll click, or it's not going to make sense, and I'm going to come back and ask you again. That's just who I am. So I'm asking these questions. Why this? Why that? What happened? He turned what direction? Then what happened? Who said this? Who said what? And he walked where? And he said where? And I literally retraced and reacted the events. It didn't make sense to me. I'm like, well, how did you all get into it about a freaking cigarette? Where were his cigarettes? Why was he even smoking a cigarette? Because we had just had a conversation 2 days ago about smoking cigarettes. Why is he even doing that? Because his foundation, that wasn't his foundation. That's not what he was raised to do. That's not something he got from me or anybody in my household or in my immediate family. So I'm thinking, why are you doing this? We went over the people in your family who's died of cancer, or the friends you know, or, we went through this whole spiel about the impact of smoking cigarettes. So Dante's friends wanted to do a candlelight vigil for him. And I remember during that vigil, someone was smoking a cigarette, and I just lost it. I think they can remember it, but I lost it. And I'm thinking, my son, you're here because my son was killed over a fight about a cigarette, and here you are smoking cigarettes. So I'm like, put out the cigarettes. I don't understand it. My son, was killed over a cigarette, and you're here holding a candlelight vigil for him, and you're smoking cigarettes. So I went on this whole, spiel about this. I couldn't take it. So, but they got it. They put the cigarettes out. And I appreciate his friends for being understanding and hearing me out and getting to know the person that I was and how passionate I was about what I was saying, and being supportive.
I'll be standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things differently.
It was nice to be able to have a conversation with them about who I was and my expectations of my son, regardless of the Danny Dope person that they knew. I didn't know who Danny Dope was. I knew Dante, because that's the name I gave him. Dante Naken Dwayne Long. That's who my son is. I didn't raise Danny. I raised Danny Dope, I guess, but I really didn't know who that person was that he was transitioning into, and that's another topic for another day. But one thing I do know is when I began to doubt who I was as a parent, they would always say he was afraid of his mom. He was afraid of disappointing you. He loved his mom. He was proud of his mom. All he talked about was his mom. And that made me feel a little bit better, because I was really, really, really doubting myself. I was struggling with that. Like, how could this have happened? How could I have not protected my child? And I still have those doubts periodically. And unless you've actually gone through the loss of a young kid who died doing something that you didn't teach them to do, you're not going to understand what that feels like. You can say it was God's will, or you can say you can't control the moves of your children once they become a certain age. Yeah, I understand that. I know that. I mean, I remember as an educator telling parents that same exact thing. But until you've lost the child, you don't really understand the insecurities that it creates. The confidence that it chips away. You just, as a single parent, I didn't have help raising my children outside of my family. Their father wasn't involved. So I remember all of their life, I'm like, I refused for you to be a statistic. I hated it. Like, it irked me. It's just assumed that because you come out of a home of a single parent, you're going to turn out to be, a dropout or in jail or dead or whatever. So I fought very hard to work against those statistics, just for my son to end up being a part of some of those statistics. So it's like, where did I go wrong? And the same way I retraced the steps of how he got killed, it's the same way I retraced the steps of my parenting and trying to figure out where I went wrong. And maybe I didn't go wrong. Maybe this was just what he was supposed to do in the time that he was supposed to do it. I remember that night when they held the visual and telling his friends, I don't care what happens, find the person who killed my son by any means necessary. I don't care how you find him. I don't care what happens when you find him. I just want him to pay. I remember that I was angry. I was angry at the person who killed my son. I was angry at my son for being in the situation because in my mind, he knows better. They did find the person who killed my son, and that person is sitting in jail now waiting trial. But it didn't keep me from being angry more so at my son because he had no business being in that situation. That's the parenting, side of me. I think that I have been operating in this past year just out of autopilot. I know logically what happened, but I'm still not really connected to it emotionally. If I feel like I want to cry, I fight back those tears for several reasons. One, what can I do about it? Like, I can cry, but it's not going to bring them back, right? If I cry, is it going to be a situation where I'm not going to be able to stop crying because I've experienced being depressed before and how hard it is to pull yourself out of that depression. I question my faith, and if I really believe that things happen because it's God's will, then why would I be upset about this happening if it was God's will? These are all the things that go through my mind. If I cry, or if I get upset, or if I show or have any kind of emotions about this, how will I be able to support my family and support my daughter when they're having their moments of grief? Then what is grief? And what is this process? And is it even real? And who said you had to go through these steps and the processes of grief and blah, 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 blah? Do I even believe in that? Because I'm not where everybody deals with the situation differently. I'm just not there yet. Have I accepted my son being gone? No, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I haven't heard from him, but it's been so many things and so many loose ends that I'm having to tie up that were his, that I really haven't had a moment to just sit down and reflect the way that I'm reflecting now. Because I've been busy. Since the day he passed away, I have been busy. Busy with handling his affairs, busy with running away from the situation, busy with just trying to keep my head above water, busy with trying to make sure that my daughter is okay because she lost her brother, busy with just trying to make sure that I can survive and continue to live a life, which is where Live Long came from. Because it was like, I'm still here for a reason. Maybe a year or so prior to that, I got in an accident that should have taken my life, but it didn't. And I've had things that happened to me in my life that I've survived, and I shouldn't be here, but I'm still here. And I question it, like, why would he go before me when I'm the one that's been hit with so many things? I don't know why. But when I go back and I listen to his music, I go back and I look at some of his text messages or some of his Facebook messages, it was almost as if he knew the day would come eventually. Sometimes I have a moment where I'm at peace with the fact that, it's good that he doesn't have to deal with all of the crap in the world and all of the things that his decisions left behind. I'm his mother. I'm carrying that load. I'm taking care of it. That's my job. My job is not to cry because I'm not the first person who's lost a loved one. I'm not the first person who's lost a son. That's kind of how I view it. Maybe some people may look at that from the perspective of you're not allowing yourself to feel that pain. And then I come back, well, what is the purpose of feeling that pain? Like, what purpose will that solve? It's a lot of things that go through my mind. It's a lot of things that I don't understand. I'm not saying that what I feel is the right way to feel. Sometimes I feel like, at least I know where my son is right now. At least I'm at peace that he's not in harm's way. At least he's free. And that's one thing about my son, is he was a free-spirited person. I knew the kind of kid he was. So I knew that I couldn't box him in, because I'm the same type of person. You can't box me in. It makes me uncomfortable. So I knew that I had to go out and let him live his life. I knew that music, which is what he was doing, he was preparing for a concert that he was getting ready to have, and he was passing out flyers for his upcoming concert. So he was doing his thing, you know. And in the process of doing his thing, somebody decided that they should take his life. I'm not sure what lesson will come out of this. I'm not sure what blessing will come out of this. I do know that things have changed. The way I view life has changed. The way I feel. I have some emotions about different things, but it still feels like, you know what, this is out of my control. That was out of my control. So I really have no control over anything. So what's the point of attaching? What's the point of loving? What's the point of feeling? What's the point of having hope in things and people when you have no control? I remember when it first happened, almost feeling like I wanted to detach even from my daughter and my family, because it's like, will I be able to handle something like this happening to me again? I'm standing now. I'm rising now. And I don't know that I'm rising. I'm really just here. I'm not sure. I don't feel like it's strength. I'm just here. I'm doing all of these things now, but could I handle that again if something or someone that was very meaningful to me was taken away from me? So when I feel like I'm becoming attached, I try to dial back. So I'm feeling something. There's an emptiness. I'm used to having 2 kids, so I don't think I'll ever feel like I'm no longer a parent of Dante's. I feel like anything that comes up involving Dante is my job to take care of, because I'm going to always be his parent. It's difficult for me to talk about him in the past tense, because I haven't resolved within myself that he's in the past tense. It's difficult for me to say that he is dead. I'd rather say he transitioned. He transitioned to something else, somewhere else. He's still alive somewhere else, and I can tap into him anytime I want to tap into him. However I feel I need to tap into him. And that may not make sense to most people, but it's what I have to do to survive. And it is bothering me that I have not heard from my son in all this time. It's like I want to hear his voice. And so what I do is I go back sometime and I'll read the messages, or I'll listen to his music, because I'm like, okay, I've heard his voice, and it gives me some sense of, peace. But that's where I am, a year later. It's not an easy thing to process. And it's a club that I was initiated into that I didn't ask to be in. And I watch other women, other mothers who have lost their sons, and wonder if they feel the same way. That's another reason why I struggle with the emotion of it, because it's like people have lost their child or children way before I ever did. So who am I to feel any kind of way about it? I'm not the first one, and I won't be the last. So I have to make do with what I have. And I've been told that I'm not giving myself an opportunity to feel that pain, but it feels bad to feel that. For me, it feels bad to feel that way when so many other people have experienced that and more. I know people who have experienced the loss of multiple children. That doesn't mean that I'm minimizing what I'm feeling, but I'm just trying to keep things in perspective the best way I can. So what we're asking you to do is just, I'm not ready to feel like this is the end for my son. So I chose to do Dante's Legacy Week and wear purple and keep his spirit alive and tell the stories, because I need for my son to stay alive some kind of way. That's the only way that I know how to cope. Everybody else can do things differently, but that's the way I know how to cope. I went to the grave and his grave site, and it didn't feel real to me. It was like I couldn't attach to that. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it day by day. And this is the way that I'm making it day by day. This is the way that I'm living long. While I'm on this earth, I can't go into this slump of a depression and just hide and back myself into a corner. So I have to figure out how to live long. And in some kind of way, I feel like my son gave us instructions about that. He kind of left us with some things that he wanted us to do. So as his mother, I'm trying to live that out. But I often question, you know, why am I still here? What else is there for me? What else is there for me to do? And I'm trying to make sure that when I find that answer out, I'm doing those things since I'm still here. And so what I'm asking is just that you go purple. Share your stories about Dante. Don't really call them memories, and don't do any RIPs and blah, blah, blah. Don't do that, because it's just finalizing things, you know, and I'd rather just believe that he's here. He's here. He's just not here in the physical presence. And I believe that he's happy about how we are celebrating his life. And it's my family's job to shape the story of his life. And my son, he was a good kid. And maybe instead of looking at it as he died, maybe look at it as he graduated from this phase of life. He graduated. I don't know, that may not make sense to most of you, but I'm just trying to make it work for me. So we're going to celebrate his graduation. We're going to celebrate his transition. And we're going to help him to live long. I'll be back with some more videos and the process and the different things that I'm going through. And I'm hoping that this helps you with whatever it is that you may be going through. And I appreciate all of the support. All right. Peace out.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you.